Welcome to Conversations and Plugs, where we transform Africa one conversation at a time.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wago. And we've noticed that a lot of you come and peek and view, and we thank you so much for engaging with our content. However, please subscribe to hear more about this channel and press the notification bell as well. So over to you, Cliff.
Over to me. But, it's very hard. As we were chatting with our guests, it's very hard to introduce somebody or let them introduce. So I will make an attempt at it. So our guest today is the founder of Legally Clueless Africa. Already you know who that is. Adelle Onyango, initiative, former radio host at Kiss FM Kenya for 7 years. Yeah, we did our homework. Recognized as BBC's 100 Women in 2017, OK Africa 100 Women, and we'll get into these things for recognitions, by the way.
Yes.
WHO Health for All Film jury in 2023.
Wow, you did do your research because nobody ever picks that one. Hey.
Over 5 million listens on Legally Clueless. And I was looking at some themes of what you do: feminism, storytelling, healing African systems.
Yeah.
Adelle Onyango, welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Such a pleasure to have you here.
I'm already so impressed. Hey,
We were so excited you were coming.
Now I'm worried because I'm just like, what else did you find?
We know nothing that is not out there.
We know that you like the color yellow.
Yes.
The studio, we created a new studio.
I like
for you
plants.
and the seats.
Yeah. And by the way, guys,
Yeah.
we came and then she had already set up. Like if you watch Legally Clueless and you watch this, we're just like, hey, Adele Studio. So we're really excited to have you. And thank you for having us. And thank you for allowing us to have a conversation with you.
You're welcome. You're
Yeah, it's a
welcome.
pleasure.
I always wondered, like, for example, especially looking at you, like, from Kiss FM, what shaped your voice growing up?
Ooh. First and foremost, I'm not a cool person. I'm not like in the
You think?
Yeah. But like I am a last born. So you know how older kids don't.
Of how many?
3.
Okay.
And older kids don't like playing with the last born. So I had to be very creative. And we lived in an area where we didn't have close neighbors. So like I feel like my creativity had to be like,
Yeah.
the front lawn is a swimming pool. I'm the coach and the swimmer. So it's like, dude, 100 meters freestyle. Yes, coach. And like, I feel like creativity then was born. It sounds like I was a strange child, but it paid off.
Yeah.
But I also feel like in terms of, just being very vocal and very kind of like letting my voice speak, even like when it's shaky or whatever, it's because of the family I grew up in. And so like my mom, who's passed away now, was very vocal and like championed a lot of policy change around breast cancer awareness in the country. And these are things I was finding out much later, but I knew she was doing the awareness and like fundraising for Kenyan women who couldn't afford treatment. And kind of watching her do all of that work kind of like made me know it's okay for me to be me. And my upbringing was very affirming. No matter how uncool I was, it was okay. So I never ever felt like something was wrong with me. I just kind of had a childhood, yes, that had, traumas here and there, as African families have, but I kind of grew up in a space that affirmed who I was over and over. And I'm very, very thankful for that. And I had a huge and some of the best examples of like strong, powerful women, from my grandmother to my mom to my aunties. And so we're all very loud and very opinionated. so I've never thought that was wrong.
Or strange.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think one of the stories I saw online or things we've known about you is feels like your voice became louder after you left Kiss.
Oh God, yes. Can I just say, like, sorry, to Patrick Kwako. Thank you so much for the opportunity. This is a disclaimer.
Yeah, no, it just seems like something like what was that about? I mean,
because I started off radio at a station called 1FM that's now closed.
I remember.
Right out of uni?
Wow.
I hadn't even graduated.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
I hadn't graduated and I got this job, which was great. It was like celebrities, music, blah, blah, blah. And while I was at 1FM, my mom passed away, so I had to grow up really quick. And all of a sudden, I started like asking our CEO then, like, what is the plan with the station? Show me your 3-year strategy and your 5-year strategy. And around that time is when, like, a year after my mom died, Kiss poached me. And it was crazy because now you're going to work with people you grew up listening to and on a station that you saw kind of come up when you were like much younger. And I always joke and say, like, in the car park where all the presenters' cars would be, because Kiss is under Radio Africa, which had like Classic FM, East FM, like so many radio stations. My car would disappear. Like, I would be like, the car would stop. I'm like, oh no, there it is. And so it was like a learning curve, right? Like you're first trying to get your rhythm, prove that you can bring in the numbers, because now this is not a hobby, this is someone's business, right? But I think it was restrictive. I wouldn't say the company restricted you, but like there's a set of rules for women in media. And if you go against them, you just get bashed. Like the amount of trolling I experienced was just like ridiculous.
Trolling from who? Like your audience?
Or
the audience for the station,
like incels, we didn't have the name for them then. Okay. And then you can't call out all the BS you see, because the BS could be coming from somebody who could pay for an advert. So you have to be very careful. You can't be in the morning calling out company A because they've done something wrong nationally, but their advert is running on your show, or your sales rep is like pitching to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then also I kind of did radio across the time where, like, you know, I mean, this is happening now, but back then it was still happening, where government could, like, one button. Like, we had a situation where these guys came into to the media house, and I really didn't understand actually why they wanted to switch people off. Even to date, I still don't, because I was just like, I don't think we've said anything. Like, what's going on? But so you couldn't say like the tweets I tweet now.
You couldn't do that then.
I would have been arrested.
And Adelle, you weren't in one like time.
Yes.
And then you moved, when you left Kiss, you were at a prime time.
I was on breakfast. I was on breakfast, which was hell, because you have to wake up so early.
4 a.m., 3 a.m.
Yeah.
4 a.m., 3 a.m. It was great because I think, it was great in the sense that it pushed me to so many more people, and it pushed me in terms of understanding so much that it's so important to the work I do now. But I think I was just over it, to be very honest. Like, I think when you're leaving, you try and look for so much meaning, especially because, like, as a society, we're socialized to be so thankful for jobs. And I get that, because scarcity of jobs is real. But then also you have a value, and it's okay to just get tired of it. You know, like, I'm tired. I want something else. And I also wanted ownership. Because I was just like, how much money am I making this business? How much money?
I'm making.
I'm like,
with your
the
little
zeros
car.
are not.
It's not adding up. Yeah.
And I remember thinking of my CEO and saying he took a risk when he was younger to start this media house that now has a footprint in Uganda and in Kenya, etc. Like, when will I take my risk? Like, I'm just building his dream. Like, when will I take my risk? And I think sooner rather than later is always the best time, because you have less to lose. Yeah.
I feel like what I'm hearing is that you also understood your value and you decided to bet on that value rather than settle for his bet.
Yeah. I don't know if it was that sounds like I'm sharp at the time. And I really want to be like, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Girl, I knew. I think I just like have always appreciated, I found a new way of saying it. I've always appreciated the options money gives me. Because when you tell people I like money, they're like, con woman. No, like money gives you options, right? And so it's like, how can I ensure I have even more options for a longer number of years ahead of me? And I was like, I want this revenue. That's I want that one. But I think the process made me understand my value. Because it was so gut-wrenching to leave. I think I wanted to leave for 3 years. By the time I was moving to breakfast, I wanted to leave. So moving to breakfast, I was like, I'm going to hit my goals of visibility, etc., much faster so I can put in my years in breakfast and then leave. But it was difficult. Imagine having to wake up at 4 a.m. for a place that you want to go. Like, you have 1 foot out, but you have to keep waking up at 4 a.m. At least if I was waking up at 9, I could handle it.
Maybe it would have been tolerable.
It would be tolerable, but that it stretches you. Like, honestly, it really stretches you, and you have to, like, I had to do a lot of work in understanding who I am versus what I do. Because with jobs that are very, like, glamorized and very like celebrity culture, etc. I remember in that, like, I was really doing homework, trying to prepare, and I remember watching an interview of a local Kenyan politician saying how immediately the elections were done, or like that government was done, like his phone stopped ringing and like no one.
Yeah.
So I just remember being like, I need to be really ready for that. Like, start understanding these people are calling you because they're musicians and they need their song on radio. It's not a personal thing.
Yeah.
These are not your friends. And just understanding that, I think that was very, very difficult. Yeah.
Okay. So we resign from KISS, and then we make the leap into Legally Clueless.
Yeah. More like a stumble.
Let's talk about the stumbling process.
Let's
take us there.
into
Take us
Legally
there.
Clueless.
Yeah. So I resigned end of 2018, December. I went to, it's Beyonce. I did some work in Joburg, and she happened to be doing a concert. And I was at the concert with a bunch of like women from like different, India, Belgium, and like just all over the world. And obviously we had taken some happy juice. I don't know, is your channel
juice.
like for kids?
Let's keep going.
No.
Yeah, so happy juice. And there was just like this energy, and we're all screaming what it is we're going to do in our lives, because you're like seeing this woman touring, and you're like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to break up with him. And I was like, I'm going home, and I'm going to resign. Yay, shots. And when was my flight back? I think my flight back was like a day after that, and I was like, ooh.
Did you?
Guys, I think you just don't break up with him.
It was a juice.
It was a juice.
Also Beyonce.
Also Beyonce.
I had someone say that once they left her concert, they could eat raw meat.
Yeah.
Can do
There's
anything.
an energy, honestly. And so I came back home, and I handed in my resignation, and I started serving my notice. But since I was done with media, because I just felt like it just had broken me in ways that I just didn't want to touch it anymore. I was like, I'm going into the NGO world. I'm going to save the world, because this corporate stuff and media is like weird. And so even the end of 2018 is when I launched my initiative, and I was like making my home office to
So the initiative came fast. Oh, okay.
My home office was like going to be like my base. And then my friend sent me this a link to podcast. I'd never listened to a podcast all this time. He was like, I think you should check this out, blah, blah. And I was like reading through it. I was like, what's this? It was intriguing, right? Because I love media, and I think I genuinely love audio. Like, I get the push for video, but like audio is so yummy. It's just so, and it's so intimate, and it's just so yummy. And then I saw what would be needed, because remember, I've resigned, so I'm not touching my money. So I'm just like, me, I'm at least with this NGO I have, it's just my laptop. And so then I saw microphones, like USB microphones, and I was so intrigued. I'm like, what? I didn't know about all of these things. And in KISS, we had these huge, like bulky equipment. And I was like, you mean this thing is going to just go into my laptop? Like, I'm so intrigued. Like, now I'm just going on like a deep dive. And I was like, Connie, how much are these things? I was like, oh, I can afford to just like, see, you just order them. Then we see. And then I started changing the wall in my office to be like yellow.
Hello, yellow.
And I didn't know what I was going to record, right? And please note, I'm serving my notice as I'm renegotiating with my CEO. I'm trying to I'm pitching this podcast that doesn't exist. So I'm pitching air to him because I'm like, okay, I want to go, but I also this revenue.
Is that revenue share?
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, let me get off your breakfast show, but I can produce the show. And then you can play it across all your major English stations. Mm-hmm. You don't have to care about how it's produced or who's on it. Like, I've solved that problem for you. I'm not an employee, so you don't have to think about my benefits. And then when we get advertisers, we can share. So me, I'll just deliver to you. Please, I'm pitching air because I don't even know the name of this podcast. All I know is microphones.
That are on the way?
That are on the way, okay. All right? But I'm like, how hard can it be? Like, we'll figure it out. Let me get the yes. And I remember he was like, great, I'll even do you one better. That show is going to be yours. I will take care of all your production costs. It'll play on the stations you wanted to play on. We'll split revenue, but you remain on my breakfast show. I'm like, man, that's not what I said. In my script, you even say yes. Then I go home and figure out the show thing. So I ended up staying, I think, 2 months more after my notice period elapsed. And I had two contracts that I still have to date because they're just a reminder to me that like you went in and you were like negotiating with a shark and like just like for 3 months straight, like never forget that. So you never think you're less than. And I walked out with I had a content agreement and an employment agreement because if I only had an employment agreement, you know, the IP and like all of that, and in an employment agreement, what you create belongs to your employer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I stayed for 2 months longer. I had a clause that said if, you know, you don't honor the covering for the producers, etc. And this production team were going to do my show, this air show. And then they were also going to do my breakfast show on KISS. And I had a clause that said, if you don't do it, then I can leave without serving notice because I hated serving notice. Like I hated it. And so that's how I left. Like I left after 2 months on a Friday, just like, oh, I don't think they're going to honor this side. Yeah.
But I don't think when you look back, hindsight, nothing goes to waste.
No, it grew me. Yeah. And I realized I love negotiation. It's so yummy.
You became a shark.
What? I was just like, I like this dance.
Encounter.
Yeah, I'm like, I really enjoy. I love not knowing. Like coming in and seeing you're putting your best foot forward, and I'm just like, wait until next week. Yeah. I actually realized, as much as like it was exhausting, right?
Yeah.
But I realized I liked it. And by that time, I had started Legally Clueless during the period. Because now I was like, I'm the
pitching
podcast
was setting up. Yeah.
So I really need to like get this thing. Because what if this guy comes on board and I don't have a show, you know? So Legally Clueless came because I was just, my mics came, everything was great. And then I just felt like I didn't know what I was doing. Because everybody's reaction was just like, how can you leave a top breakfast show? Like, you are not normal. You are making a mistake. And I was just like, but me inside, I think I'm okay. Dani, I feel like I'm on the right track. And I called my friend, the same one who told me about podcasting. I was just crying for him and crying. And I was like, I don't even know what to record on these microphones. And he's like, just record what you have told me. And so that's why episode 1 is just like me scratchy voice, because I just cried in that room of mine. And it was 8 minutes long, which coming from traditional radio, I thought was so long. I was just like,
there's no media break.
Minutes, you know? And yeah, that's how we started. And with time, I realized I have friends who have stories to tell. I remember one of my colleagues and friends at the time, Adelle Onyango. So she was one of the first people who came on the show. I think even one of my sponsored shows, she came on and I was able to pay her for coming on the show because I had an advertiser. And we recorded it in my home studio.
Yeah.
And yeah, we just kind of grew in a very authentic and natural way from that point. That sometimes I look back and I'm just like, okay, that version of you that was crying. And like, I mean, I like crying in general. It's an activity I get quite a lot of joy from. But then I was just like, why were you crying? That was a waste of tears, you know? Because everything worked out.
Everything worked out. Mm-hmm. I mean, and now you fast forward and you're building this thing. And when I was even saying nothing goes to waste, you were at Radio Africa Group. You probably saw how they were operating.
Oh, yeah.
And our conversation with you was interesting because you're building a network.
Yeah. 100%.
When did that crystallize?
Because you've left us at Legally Clueless.
Yeah.
Like 3 or 4 episodes in.
Episode 1
now
crying.
We're at network.
8 minutes.
Now we're at network.
I think like as we went along, it was still kind of like a hobby, but I was monitoring it. Like,
was it real M&E?
Just pay for Wi-Fi. Okay. Just pay for Wi-Fi. But I was monitoring it. And then when we got our first advertiser, who I think was the Coca-Cola Foundation and the World Youth Forum. Like they came around the same time.
Did you go actively looking for them or they found you?
They came to me. So what started happening is when you come to me, I would pitch Legally Clueless.
Okay. They were coming to you through...
As Adelle, who
just directly as Adelle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just directly as Adelle.
Okay.
And I'll be like, actually, because I still, even to date, think you get more value there because I'm one person, one story, one perspective.
Yeah,
but like the platform allows you wriggle room, right?
Yeah.
So I'd pitch that. And so when we got it, I was just like, oh.
You mean it, yeah.
I was just like, bye, NGO. Rushed back to my microphones. And you know what? I enjoyed the freedom, even before we started making any revenues. Like, I enjoyed the freedom because I could say whatever. I could be crying. There's like episodes where I'm just like, and none of you checked on me. That was a breakdown happening. And y'all were just like listening as you're walking or in the gym. And I'm falling apart. But I enjoyed the freedom. And so that was 2019, 2020. Funny enough, everybody asked, like, it's like you knew COVID was coming because you were set up to work from home. Advertisers and organizations were pulling back from advertising on traditional media because it was so expensive, but they still wanted to remain top of mind. So they were looking for more digital platforms.
Talk about being prepared.
Right? And I was just like, oh my
catching
God,
a wave.
it's happening. This is not a drill. And there was that. And then what else? And because it's not like nothing that's produced at Legally Clueless is like clout. It's all good. And at that time, a lot of good stuff was needed. And we were down the alleyway of mental wellness. A lot of that was needed, right? And so we ended up partnering with so many people that year. Even got like a job from an Australian company who I was just like, first, I don't know if, are you con men? Are you going to pay me? Or like, what's happening here? But I would just remember them because I was like, this is actually the power of digital. Like, I've been restricting my pitching to pitching locally when like, why? You know? And so in the middle of that, I knew as much as I love audio, we needed to have a video footprint. But I was like, what does that look like? And so we started our video series. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time. Is I was directing and I was producing. And I was creating things that I wanted to see on the continent, right? And so it would be storytellers who come onto the set and they just have a moment to share their stories, right? And then after that, I was like, I always wanted to be on the road. Like, you know how you see musicians like in the tour bus. I was like, I want that life. And I remember telling our CEO at Kiss, like, I don't want to be in this box. I want to be out there where life is happening. And he's probably just looking at me like this young girl.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I know a tour can happen. No, like if I can see it, I have this thing of like, there's the creative and there's the businesswoman. And the creative can see, like my friend always says, whenever you have an idea, you've already seen the visuals and the shoots. I'm like, yeah, because once that's done, I'm like, yep, we're ready to go. Because then the business can say, aha, now this is where we can put in money or decide it shall be sustainable. And so I could see the tour and I'm like, why isn't it happening? You know? And so I did a mock tour around a few universities. Like the furthest was Meru University. Because and then I fell in love with Meru because it's just so green and so beautiful. But literally, I was looking for a particular...
My shags.
I remember looking for I was like, I know the particular table I want. And actually, like, I went into town, I don't know what streets, because I was like, I need a table that unscrews because... First, we are going on this tour in my car.
The little car.
Space. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Space. And then there's my microphones. And then there's these chairs. And, you know. And so I tested it and I was like, I knew it could work. Like, and I knew now my microphones work. This works. And the process of getting storytellers works. And so then I applied for a grant and did a Kenya tour with Africa No Filter. I think that was in it was still COVID time because there was still, what is it called? Curfews were still on. And so we went across 4 counties. And I think I just realized like, oh yeah, nobody's telling African stories to Africans, even about our places, you know? And from that, I saw we had like an audience in South Africa who were just like, I didn't know Kisumu was a place, like, when we hear Kenya, we just know the national parks and the beach, right? And they're like, this is so beautiful because we did a really good job. Like, honestly, our productions are so well done.
Yeah.
And so I was like, now I need more of this tour thing. I want to be on the road, guys, remember? And I think I just kept on producing what I want to see. And also a space that dignifies Africans and Africa, right? That's the niche that I'm in. I don't want the Woishe or the savior story arc per se. And so what came after that? Then we went to Paris. As soon as we finished our tour, we went to Paris. So we did a Paris tour, which was so interesting because now it's a lot of the Africans who live in Paris are from Francophone Africa.
So the tour has gone international.
Oh, yeah.
So how did you end up in Paris? Yeah. I was just like, it's just my pitching. Like, you come directly to me, I'm like, yeah, I hear you, and I know you make sense. However, have you considered? It's kind of like the plug with like, I think this is better than what you've come for. And, you know, when you explain things to people and you pitch in a way that they can experience, they get it. And it was wonderful because we recorded stories from, yes, Kenyans living in Paris, but like people from Morocco. I got to interact with people from Senegal. And I got to even understand Paris. Like, what is this place's story? When we came back, there was the National Museum of Zimbabwe reached out. Because when I was in Paris, I kind of like told off Macron and they were like, we want that girl. So they reached out and they're like, hey, we're also over here demanding that the British blah, blah, blah. And I did the thing. I hear you, but so we did. And I loved Zimbabwe. And I feel like I'm going around in circles, but like your question is answered in Zimbabwe because in Zimbabwe, we toured Harare and Victoria Falls. And we told so many yummy stories. Like we got to meet and we got to go to so many places. Like I think we extended. Yeah, I feel like we extended our stay. In fact, why I left is because then Zimbabwe was put on a red list. And I had another trip and I was like, hey, this being African thing is difficult.
It's too much.
I need to run back home. So I can be like, hey, not me. But so many people I met were learning Swahili. So when they hear that you're Kenyan, they're just like, habari. And like the one said, there was so much warmth. The Zimbabwe story is told from such a one-dimensional way. It's just terrible. I felt so embarrassed as an African that like I had consumed and believed this one narrative. And like, I remember even crying, like my last link, I was just like, God, this is, and it's so spiritual. It's almost like Accra in Ghana, like where traditional and modern lives so seamlessly together. And it's something I wish we had more of, especially, let's say, in Nairobi. And I just was like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, actually. Like now people will know a different side of Zimbabwe that maybe they would never be able to touch, right? And so when I came home, I was just like, oh my God, we need tons of stories. Like these stories matter, right? Whether it's in an audio version or visual. So then I started being more intentional of like, what does the community of Africans need when they're telling the stories? What are we hearing? Okay, so wellness is something that's needed. So that's how we give back to our community. But I'm trying to be politically correct.
You don't have to.
Fine. I think we produce mediocre stuff, especially as Kenyans. Like, and we consume and like elevate just things that I'm like, why are you participating as an audience member? Please sit down here and tell me why you're participating. And it's not, I don't say it from a cocky way. I feel like we import show ideas from the West. We import even sets from the West. We talk about the West. Like, I'm just like, me, half the time, I don't even know what's happening. And I think it's maybe act of rebellion. Also some things you have to know, but I'm like, staki kujua. Like, then do they know what's happening in Siaya?
It's true.
Well, then I don't want to know, you know? Yeah. But, and so I call it mediocre because we're not, you can watch a show, maybe coming from traditional radio, which I credit Kiss. Preparation is something that I really learned and I was trained for. And you can watch something and you're like, there was no preparation done here. I don't know what this show stands for. I'm not saying everyone has to be giving back to the community.
Correct.
I'm like, man, even gossip. Like if I was to produce a gossip show, it would be wonderful. Yeah. You would sit there and be like, yes, I like that scandal, you know? And so I think for me, it's to, one, produce something that can compete globally. And that means where Kenya is now, me being okay knowing I may not get the mass Kenyan audience and just sticking to my plan, right? And then two, to be an African woman leading a media organization. Like we don't have... enough of that. I remember when I was looking for like, who can I touch and talk to and like whatever. I think the nearest I got was Uche Pedro. She runs Bella Niger in Nigeria. And I just liked how she segmented the business and how it runs.
Also, you can see excellence.
Yeah. Exactly. And so I started following... love her or hate her, I started really looking into the structures Oprah has in terms of like from a business lens. I looked at Issa Rae. I followed tours and I still like to the point of like, I'm watching on YouTube and I'm trying to listen to the sound. I'm like, oh, how, like, maybe our sound would have been better if we did this or whatever. And I think trying to understand what are the stories from the continent that can be produced in an excellent manner. That's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
And that's the network you're building.
That's the network I'm building.
Okay. The media network. That's pretty cool. I think one of the things people take for granted, and even chatting with you, is around, especially your upbringing. There's something when we were chatting, you talked about, and I see it coming through a couple of things. Number one is your education.
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing you say you like pitching, you're pretty proactive, and then you come into Radio Africa, where you've worked, and all that stuff that you've picked, nothing goes to waste again.
Nothing goes to waste.
But your education, and I know we spoke a little about education, and then our passion for Africa, which is we need to tell our stories our way.
Yeah.
What does all those things have impact, especially your education and upbringing, in terms of you building your business now?
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur. So the education bit is what really got me, because I just feel like, man, we have a lot of work to do in terms of how we are educated.
Yeah.
We're educated to be, it's an institution.
Yeah.
It is meant to churn out specific kinds of people, and that's why we get stuck. So how did you unmatrix yourself?
Oh my God, it's stumbling. And I'm just like, my ancestors were just pulling strings from above. But like, I was almost laughing when you were talking, and not at you, but at a tweet I saw this morning, which is like, someone was sharing about a university in the States that's looking to make a chip using the students are trying to innovate something new. And please, I have nothing against the university. It was a tweet I saw, but somebody said, and meanwhile, Rongo University, are you having breakfast? And I was just like, this is hilarious, but it's sad. Because why? Why are we choosing, actively choosing to be? Education is so important. It's so important. And like, I feel like, had I said, sorry, Rongo University, I'm sure you're wonderful. Your breakfast was great. Like, for me, I think
it's a reality.
It's a reality, and it's so unfortunate. So when I was, I did 844 until class 7, and I still remember like nudging my mom to be like, "Hey, if you don't want to be embarrassed, I suggest you start planning your moves," because it just felt like I didn't feel like I enjoyed learning.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy, I'm not someone who crams. I'm somebody who questions. And so I learn, the more you tell me why, that's what remains.
Yeah.
So I'm not cramming the thing. I understand why we're doing this. Then like, okay, that makes sense. And then in class 7, because I was like, I can't do KCPE. Like, just like, hey. In class 7, I moved and went to live with my aunt in Botswana. And so I switched to IGCSE.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, the Ys were allowed, That was when I started writing poetry, because like my English class was incredible, because in Kenya, what I had been learning in 844, there was like Shakespeare being introduced. And I never understood why we were learning about that guy to date. I still die on that hill. I'm just like, why are you writing like that? Like, what are you trying to tell us? I find that poetry so overrated.
I hate that we still have to do that. Like Macbeth and
And I get it from our general knowledge, but like...
There are many
we
other
have
African,
our own. Like Ethiopia, during their wars, they had poetry battles. Like points where it's not warrior to warrior. It's like, hey, you, what has your poet written? Hey, mine has said this. It's like, oh, killer lion, killed it. And we're still here, Romeo, Romeoing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, dude, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
And so when I went to, I remember my English, sorry, this episode is going to be so long, but like...
It is fine. It is fine. And by the way, we have a mini studio audience. So
Yeah.
if you hear laughter, the guys just laughing behind you. But
so
we love it.
We had like this... I still remember my literature teacher, just to give you a sense of just how different it was. So I go there knowing I don't like poetry, but my literature teacher is like, okay, what's your favorite song right now? Print out the lyrics, bring it to class, and we're going to like chamboy it as poetry. I'm like, what? Lyrics are poetry? And she's like, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And so there was no wrong song, right? I took this song by Whitney Houston, Why Are You Looking at Me? And she was like in her reinventing era, and I was like, ooh, yes. And there was a guy in my class who brought thong song, Kopolo. I still remember you. And it was okay, all right? It was just like, Cisco is passionate about thighs. Like, this is important. But it was like, I started realizing I love poetry, you know? And I was just like, this is like, these words are incredible. That's poetry. When it comes to history, I love history.
Yeah.
But like, 844, it was GHC. So we didn't really, even the history was so like bland, you know?
It was a subtopic.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the era we were living in,
it was intentional.
It was intentional
also
to control.
Yeah. And all of a
millennials.
sudden, being in Southern Africa, I'm learning about apartheid. I'm learning about, you know, things that were happening that I'm like, what happened to what? And
so you're learning history, but it was not our story, our history.
it wasn't.
It was told from a very different...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and then I knew I was about, 12, 13. I knew I was going to go into media.
Okay.
Like, we had sessions with our career counselor, and I always ended up on journalism, PR. So from age 12, I knew exactly what I was going to
Gosh, what if
study.
you hadn't gone to...
What if I hadn't gone to, you know? And innovation was welcomed. Like, you want to start something, start it. And so I feel like if I didn't have that break, I may have gotten lost.
Yeah.
In the system.
And actually, that's what probably even prompted us to have this podcast as well. When we were talking with Wago is, I mean, you get into some courses, like for example, I do, and I'm just like, wow, these guys are way ahead. And I'm like, I only shut at what is being taught at other universities because it is so dated.
100%.
And that is why I was just like, we have to do something because I had Wago yesterday saying, to whom much is given, much is required. So you've got to give back in terms of, I know this stuff, can I share it with you?
I went back to USIU because I went to uni in USIU, and I went back to teach podcasting.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing.
Be like, how can you guys create your own podcast? You can't be sitting saying you're going to graduate and come and look for a job in a radio station. Like that day
that's
and
gone.
age ended, right?
Yeah.
And even if you do, you at least come and show me what it is you're already doing,
Correct.
you know?
Yeah.
And it's sad that we don't give, Africans don't, education-wise, we don't get a fighting chance.
Yeah.
And it's not that we're
It's actually,
dumb or...
No, not at all.
No.
It wasn't designed for us to prosper. It was designed for us to enter the system and just not question. Because the more we question, and that's why even right now, what we're seeing in our country is that we're questioning so much more and demanding so much more from our leaders.
Yeah.
And that's very counter what they expected.
It's
100%.
It's counter the system.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this questioning of why are we set up this way?
Intentionally.
Why? And we can see there's something wrong with it. And that's the whole idea.
When I came back from Botswana, I was so shocked that the poetry I was being taught here, I was like, you guys, you made it seem like it was only this Shakespeare guy. Kumbe, even music, you know? Yeah. And by that time, I discovered so many African poets. And so I printed all of this poetry. Of course, I put mine there as well.
By Adelle.
And I told my mom, like, I can't believe in schools they're still teaching all, you know, poetry that we can relate with. And she drove me to, I can't remember what the institute was, but they governed a lot of the curriculum. And it was somewhere in South B. I think they've moved now, but it was somewhere off Mombasa Road, because I don't know if it was South B or South C. one of the Souths. And she dropped me at the gate, like, go in and like plead your case with whoever is in charge. And like I walked in with my kafolda. And I was, first, that office looked like it was from the 70s. Because I was just saying, hey.
It's like they're all stuck in time.
How are you even in color? It seems like it's black and white, And like, walked into this guy's office. He's like, older man, so uninterested with me. But me, I'm like, I'm already here. If you have an attitude, we'll just write it out. And I was like, yeah, I think we can add more poetry to that. Because obviously, like, the naivety of like youth is
you
that.
went to KICD, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development.
Was it that?
Yeah.
Was it off Mombasa
I can
Road?
see even the...
Wow.
Yeah. And like, he was like, okay, just leave the folder with me. And I felt so accomplished. Of course,
Adele.
Didn't do anything with it. But yeah, I think even, and I was what? Maybe 16 at the time. I'm pretty sure. I was just like...
Love youth. Yeah.
Like, school is fun. You guys are lying to us. School is fun. But it does, honestly, if I didn't get that exposure, I'm not sure. And even to be able to, like, what I'm producing, I know there's a global audience. Obviously, Kenya is at my heart. But even to have that acknowledgement of there's something bigger than Nairobi, bigger than Kenya that I want to like impact. I think you have to get exposed to it. I'm not saying everyone must travel, but even through education, you can get a touch and feel of like something bigger.
Exposure is everything. Yeah. I want us to kind of go back to, you went to your SAU and you helped work with them, like figure out how to even create a podcast. But you're the first, and not bad, you're the first Kenyan podcast to be syndicated.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah,
by Trace.
Yeah.
And when I'm hearing your story, I'm hearing Kiss prepared you for those negotiations.
Oh, yeah.
And syndication and ownership are two different things. And you have to structure yourself for either.
Yeah.
How did you structure yourself for syndication? And did you know you're structuring yourself for syndication?
And what is syndication?
Syndication is like basically, even podcasts, your show like this is, you have, what is it called? Simple syndication something, even like just you being on multiple platforms is actually syndication. But it's like an example of it is like Rick Dees, and I use that
First of all,
example.
how is Rick Dees still alive?
That's so true.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
I was listening to him the other Saturday.
Yeah.
Actually,
He's still alive.
I do remember back in the day when I used to work in agency, there was a show by Radio Express.
Yeah.
They used to do some hip hop show. It was actually, Coca-Cola used to buy the show. And then it's sent to the station and then it's played at a time slot. So you actually buy a show that's been produced elsewhere.
I used to like, so syndication is like your show, it's what I was pitching. Your show is licensed to play on whatever other platform, right?
Okay.
And you can get paid for syndication, or it's simple syndication, which is what happens with podcasting, where your podcast is on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify or whatever, but it's because you've opened your simple syndication. There's a code, right? And so that you're not uploading on each and every platform, right? But in my case, I always was so fascinated by Rick Dees.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
I didn't care for the music. I found it too white. It was just not my cup of tea. I didn't like the what's it called? The gossip or whatever. But I think I was like the structure, the business structure, because I still remember I used to listen passionately to when he, for the longest time, was selling Beats by Dre.
Yes.
And he would like link you back to his website. And I'll just be like, okay, and then how you doing it, old man? Tell me, And I used to be so fascinated, like this guy is overseas. And like he's probably recording this in his pajamas at a decent hour, not 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And then we, although so far removed from him, it's like at one of the top shows. It was on Capitol at the time. Top shows on Capitol. I was just like, mind blown. And I want it.
And that was Saturday in the morning,
right?
weekdays.
And I was like,
the countdown.
I want that because it's revenue, it's almost passive because your show exists anyway, and then it's you own it. So like you are getting. It was just wonderful listening to him. I was like, I wanted it. And so the first time I pitched syndication was obviously when I was pitching Air.
Yeah.
And then I pitched it a second time to another app that didn't actually take off. And they were going to have different music streams or channels. So imagine if you have a 24-hour jazz station, a 24-hour R&B station, and it's all on your phone. And so I pitched to them. They ghosted me, like completely just went silent. I was just like,
Thanks.
Noted with thanks. We shall meet Nairobi small. And then the third people were Trace, because I also knew Trace would open doors because it's globally recognized. So I knew I wasn't pitching to, let's say, legacy Kenya-centered media, because I was just like, I want to get into other markets. Like, and then I want brands that when I say this in Timbuktu, they understand what I'm talking about. And it's not, I don't have to explain, this is the number one station in Kenya. No, I just want, I want that work done. And so, I think the thing is with globally recognized organizations or platforms, they get it. To be honest, I think I had 2 meetings. I had the first meeting, which was a pitch. I had a reel of what the show was going to sound like. And the second meeting, I was signing my contract.
Wow.
And so it was not, they could see value very quickly. I knew the head of Trace. We had met at the African Union there was something happening around youth. So I'd listened to what they'd pledged. It was Agenda 2063, the youth chapter was big. So like Facebook had pledged things, Trace had pledged things. So I was like, okay, we're aligned here and here and here. And so it just made so much sense. And I remember initially we were it was during COVID when that happened. And so they paused everything. And I remember the CEO was like, why would you pause that? Like, how is COVID affecting you being able to produce? Can you like sign that contract and get that podcast on air? And I guess my knowledge of radio helped me produce for radio.
Goes 2 ways.
Yeah. I was able to produce for radio.
You were actually producing at a global level.
Yeah. And so they wouldn't see me at the station. Like I think I would just go into Salimia guys because I would just like upload the shows. The producer on their end picks it up, schedules it, and like.
Did you have to do anything, any copyright agreements?
So that was so it was basically when you have a content agreement, unless in special situations where you're co-creating something that's new, this was an already existing show that was owned by me. And so that was already ironed out in the contract. So what the contract then looks at is if you're getting a retainer, what's your advertising splits, what are the responsibilities, especially in terms of production, and you want to keep all the production responsibilities, as tempting as it is to get someone to pay for that, because that allows you to get to negotiate for a higher percentage of the revenue split. Yeah.
So you get to own it?
Yeah. So ownership.
Yeah. And it's
which is a big thing, and IP as well.
It's so big.
I think sitting here listening to you talked about the creator and the business owner.
Yeah.
Let's dial in on the business owner because you're running a business. Your street MBA.
Hey, in Nairobi.
I call it the street MBA in terms of running your business, setting it up. I think when we were having a chat, you have a board.
Yeah.
How did you arrive there? Building the right structures for your
build
business.
With that in mind?
Yeah.
No.
And
sorry.
No.
Yeah, I didn't because at the beginning it was a hobby. And it was fun times.
You were stumbling through.
Yeah, I was stumbling through. But what I noticed is and it's such a humbling thing to kind of face and confront in yourself, is when I looked back at some of my frustration in legacy media, like the 2 stations that I worked at, is that the innovator, who's the founder or the CEO, can very easily become the stumbling block to the organization growing.
Oh, gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was just like, okay, I know you have a big ego, but you're going to have to swallow the pill that you could end up like limiting this thing, right? I'm very stubborn, like, which is a good thing sometimes, but it can also,
sword.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I knew I needed to quickly find people I kind of look up to, who are strong in my weaknesses, who I listen to, because like I don't listen to, to many people. So that I could be able to bounce ideas, and that people who have knowledge, but on a global level.
Yeah.
So, I got someone who's in production. Like this guy worked on the set of Friends. Like Joby is incredible. He's a Ugandan, but based and has been in South Africa for years. If you remember Mafiki Zolo's music videos, like Corner, and like he
Wow.
he had a company running all of that. Like he's incredible.
Yeah.
He's actually incredible. And I listen to Joby, like, which, not again, don't listen to many people.
Someone from the Moth,
Sarah, because the Moth and storytelling is at the core of what we do. So then they just support like our work, and like just even when they've contracted me, they're like, hey, do you want to plug in legally? And I'm just like, it's not allowed. All right, say less. We're inside. But I wanted to always be in touch with markets that I'm not in, but I aspire to be part of, when it comes to Shefa or Kore, because of impact. And we're really serving a bias to African women. So like I needed that voice to help me understand. We have Danny, who worked at MultiChoice, led we worked together at Radio Africa, works at Trace, just kind of like to always, he's really good with business. Like when I talk to him, I'm like, how do we move from a business to business to business to customer or client? Like, please, I'm all ears, and very innovative. And then I have Roy. Roy does all our productions.
We met Roy.
Roy does all our productions, and he's the one who first got me into podcasting, and is like definitely my best friend. And again, someone who can call me out on my BS, on like wait, what are you doing? And so I feel like it's important for me to even keep in mind that I want to ascend to the board one day.
Okay.
Because I may become a stumbling block to what I want to do.
Well, that's usually such a big, I've interacted with some founders, and and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
You need to get out now.
And I don't think when it starts to happen, I don't even think you can see it.
No, you can't.
I don't think you can see it.
You're so deep
and you're
in
so
there.
attached. Like,
it's your baby.
It's your baby. Like, if we don't get a pitch, I take it personally. Like, I almost hold a grudge. I'm just like, Nime Kumak. I'm just like, I won't talk to that person. Whereas it's not that deep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And you just have to be aware of that. You could be, and to be honest, I don't want to be hosting our shows in like for perpetuity. I don't want to do that. That's not attractive to me to think about.
So you're building a business in spite of you. So in terms of eventually, you're building the business that can sustain itself.
Exactly.
Then the next Adelle, so to speak, will come in and run the business.
Yeah.
It feels also as an ecosystem, because there's still, you're training Africans. You're building up the next generation. Why are you doing that? And what's that for? Because it's not only the content you're putting out and then network you're building. Yeah. It's like you're bringing everybody who can be brought along with you.
Yeah. I mean, there are two things. Like, there's a selfish and a selfless reason. So let's start with the selfless, because then it's like, oh, she's not a bad person. Like,
Selfless or self-full?
That sounds better. And it's like, I think it's important to share those skills, right? And I think if I'm saying I really want the African story to have as many voices, I can't actualize that alone.
Yeah.
Even with as many shows as we do, like, I can't. And even if I was able to do that, there would still be some DNA that is like unique to us. So I'm still telling stories the way I think stories should be told.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect. But then there's also the business aspect. Like, we can't hit the profits I want to hit if we're just 10 players. So I'm like, can you guys get in here?
Let's expand it.
So then the value increases. The cake gets bigger.
Yeah.
Me, I can get my big piece. Whatever you guys want to do, the rest of the cake, you go ahead and do. And it's purely, we need more sustainable shows so that when I'm pitching, it's like so much easier. I'm not saying, Aki, podcasts really,
trust me, yeah.
I can have more examples, and more, what's it called? Opportunities for collaborations that could even help build sustainability. Like, I would, for example, I think there was a time I was looking into it, but I had to pause that. Like, I'm interested in producing a show on motherhood. I'm not a mother, so I would need to collaborate with somebody in that regard. And we had started conversations with a local creator on that. I think there is a lot of revenue around sports, but I don't give a damn about sports.
Correct.
So I'm
Thank you for the honesty.
I really don't. So, and I want to enjoy the work that I do.
Yeah.
And so how do I partner with somebody who's doing that? And so it's like, it serves me to have as many
it does.
as many players in the space, because then the value increases. I think a lot of us get into business with a scarcity mentality.
Preach.
And you're shooting your own business in the foot.
Yeah. I mean, when we walked into your office to shoot a certain episode, on your wall, you have a movie out.
Yes, I watched the trailer.
Oh, yes, I do. Look at me, I'm like,
huh?
Adele.
She's like,
Adele? Really?
Just like, sorry. It's because he invited the businesswoman. So that one was sleeping. It's like, is that my name? I do have a film out. How awesome is that?
That is unbelievable.
Like, it's so
well done.
Thanks.
Well done.
And it's one of the things that I want, even when we're talking about a network, I want us to, the reason I'm saying Legally Clueless is not a podcast is, why can't we produce short films? Why can't we produce feature films? Why can't we produce even, I'm writing my second book. I'm like, my second book can be under this. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I have my first ever film. It's called Home.
Well done.
It's a short poetry film. I'm very proud of it because it's like, I think I did a very good job. And then to know that it's my first time writing a film and directing, and even to be picked, because we first were, I think, 6 creators in a writer's room. And then after we developed our scripts, they would pick which scripts they were going to fund to production.
Who is they?
So there's an organization called Iris, led by an incredible Ethiopian woman called Merit.
Okay.
And she is really trying to change what storytelling in Africa looks like by giving the creators the leeway to just create how you want to create. Don't be
limited by
who's funding you, and make it the way they want. No. And so I kept on wondering, why am I in this group? Because in fact, when they first reached out to me, I was like, I think, do you mean Della, the musician? Or sometimes people get us confused. And they sent the email, but it was because I'm a poet. I've never written a script. So I was just like, is it me you want? Or is there another Adele? And being in that space, I remember Merit saying, I think poets make really good script writers. And now I agree, because like when you write poetry, when I write poetry, I'm like visualizing things, even if it's a concept, like I'm visualizing it pour into another, and like I can see things. And so it was so wonderful. Like, I'm actually so proud. It hasn't set in. I'm so
well done.
nervous about the film,
Okay.
but like, it was incredible. And it's the journey of an African woman back home to her body, through poetry. Yeah.
I love that very much.
It's honestly, nothing is wasted.
Nothing
I'm
is
seeing your
Yeah.
grandmother, I'm seeing your mom, I'm seeing your
Yeah.
entire journey.
You're carrying everyone.
Yeah.
I have a question, and even some things I always wonder, or I'm sure guys would be wondering, is how did you set up to be funded? Do you apply? How do you pitch? Because I've heard you talking about lots of pitches.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I
what's up?
pitch
Yeah.
all the time.
Oh, really?
Like, if you tell me now, like if I sniff, it's an opportunity, I'll just like push this mic away. Actually, because I told you I enjoy it.
Okay.
What do you
it.
enjoy about it?
The dance. Even when I get the job, I'm like, oh,
A lot
man.
of creatives do not.
Now
yeah.
it's over. Now we have to work. We have to do the thing I was just saying. We can do it.
What
I like
actually
pitching.
makes you good at pitching?
Because it's almost like stalking, right? So legally.
Research.
Okay. So I look at, and that's probably even why I haven't gotten, I think we've only gotten one grant. Because grants are not pitching.
No.
It's like
You apply for
there's
them.
no dance.
Yeah.
But I have a list of organizations that I've always wanted to work with, and that I think values-wise are. So we have this deck for Legally Clueless Africa for whoever who comes on. It's like called a brand heart, right? And it's like your mission, your vision, your values. And there's one other thing I always forget. But I look at, based on what our values are and our mission and our vision, like who is aligned. Or it couldn't even be who is aligned right now, right? And who is going to help me, by me working with them, they're going to help me pitch. So I'm going to use them in the next pitch. And so it's a bit of stalking in that, because like, I want to work with, let's say, Mastercard Foundation. Okay, what are they doing? Okay, who must I know? You know? And what do I perceive to be their pain points from the outside looking in?
Right.
Because then I have to speak to that in the pitch. And I think grants are great. Like, our first tour was with Africa No Filter, and it was a grant. But the way we're structured now, I haven't maximized on grants, and maybe I will in the future, who knows? But in terms of pitching, I look for who is aligned in storytelling. What are my value pockets? I'm very aware of, like, every show I'm creating. I'm like, okay, then it's passed on to the business side. Okay, here's where the value is. And I think people always think value is numbers. It's not.
It's not. Okay.
It's not. I think even sometimes the deepest value is the one that is not quantified, right? So it could be like association. It's, the stamp of you're legit, because now we saw you here. It's visibility to a niche audience that cares about this thing or product or project that you have. It's to be seen, to be at the core of certain values or things that stand for certain things. Or it's to be like developing like the next generation of whatever it is your product is, And so in that sense, I feel like I've always approached advertising on our shows with that long-term sense.
View, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, are they aligned to our values?
Yeah. Because then the pitch is so much easier.
Yeah.
The pitch, the friction now becomes budgets. But that we're going to work together, we're going to work together.
Check. Values check.
Yeah. And then you look for long term. So I try and say, I don't look at like episodes. It's like, come on this episode or whatever. Because I ticked that box where on the Prime network for Spreaker, which is by iHeartRadio. So it means we have adverts for particular markets. So like in the States or in Japan, etc. running. And so then that means the daily, every episode's ads, that's taken care of.
Right.
So now I'm looking for aligned people who I can structure a season for you. And so currently we have like a She Walks series that we're doing.
I like that series.
Yeah.
I watched a couple. Yeah.
We've worked with Guinness on Made of Black in the past. We did our East Africa tour with MasterCard Foundation. We worked with a couple of pretty awesome people. And yeah, it's just, I think we need to, it's first understanding your value and not limiting your value to numbers. Numbers are great, but it's like, it's not
all.
It's not all. Yeah.
When you look down the future, in terms of us shaping the African narrative, what do you think that future looks like that we're building now? You can tap into your creative and imagination. What does that future look like? Because I mean, we're all in here. We were just like, even with our go, when a couple of our friends, when we were starting this podcast, we're like, okay, I mean, let's just add our voice to whatever is growing.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will shape a certain future.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I even think like when I visualize it, I'm limiting it.
Okay.
Because even when I visualized like Legally Clue, it was a podcast. And then now I'm like, oh, kumbe.
It's a network.
You are there?
Now it's a business.
Exactly. But so maybe I can share what I'm curious about.
Okay.
And like what I'm still in like the research phase is like, what does innovative storytelling look like? And so different formats that go beyond your traditional audio and video. So I'm having conversations with people who are in the VR space, or like who are in more immersive tech, right?
Yeah.
So I'm having conversations with people who have never understood journalism, but they understand tech. And I'm just like, tell me more. Like, okay, how does this thing work? Because I'm like, this is interesting. Like, is there no way... Is there a what does storytelling look like in that regard? I'm curious about community. Really curious about community.
Yeah.
Really, really curious about community, because I think...
What about it?
Especially community for African women. You know? I just feel like, again, when I say mediocre, even limiting is mediocre. So I don't mean like, oh, somebody like our legacy media, their video quality on YouTube is like, that's mediocre. But I don't mean only that. I mean, we even limit what Kenyan women looks like, community looks like, right? And I'm curious and like in the development stage of what does a playful space for African women look like not a space where a lot of the things we have are like bettering yourself, and that's important. I love that. But like, where can we just play?
Because there's a lot of load that African women carry, and play an African woman does not actually
100%. You know, so what does that look like?
That's interesting.
Yeah, and without it, I'm not forcing you like. Women entrepreneurs, come together. Come for this women empowerment forum. Oh, no, I don't want to do it. Like, what does that look like? And how can it not be limiting? Because I think some of these spaces, no offense to anybody's religion, they're heavily religious or heavy. And it's just like someone like me is lost. Yet, and I know the women in my life who have kind of shared values to some extent are also lost. Like, so I'm like, something is missing, you know. So I'm curious, very, very curious. Like that's something we're testing out now. And then just what does not making products, if it's like a Kenyan, how do we make it not Nairobi? You know?
Yeah. Because Nairobi is not Kenya.
Yeah. So that's also something I'm curious about, because as much as I'm saying I understand what I produce is very like looking at a global market and audience, I haven't fully given up on like, because I'm like, if I'm feeling this way, there's some of you who are feeling this way as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so what does that look like? Or and I'm also curious of the stories of disobedience. You know, like,
because we don't normally talk about that openly.
We don't talk about it openly, yet, you know. So even I hate that when you say disobedience, the first place you land at is sex. Because I'm like, it's not disobedience. Like, we're all sexual beings, please. Yeah. But it's how can we disobey as we are telling stories as well? Like, what does that look like? So I'm very curious about that. Yeah.
I love your curiosity. Thank you. Yeah, can you figure that out so we can get
I am. Let me tell you. I'm the test.
Yeah.
I'm testing it on myself, you know, as we go, because I think
to see more of yourself in media.
Yeah, 100%.
And even as I look at our time gone, I have a question around, especially in the media space. I mean, you've been here for a minute. So when you look back or when you introspect, what's broken with African media?
Where do we start?
Oh, this is a thesis. It's tough.
The structures. First, I don't know why some of the board members are affiliated to or in government. Because then it's just like, I remember when I went to school, media is the watchdog. So how can you play the watchdog role when said person you're meant to be watching is on your board? Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So when you look at it even from like a political or governance standpoint, you're definitely biased in that regard. Like you're not, and that's why the audience
you're not watching what you're meant to be watching.
Yeah,
you're watching something different.
And that's why the audience is not dumb. That's why you hear Githeri Media and stuff, because they can draw
like,
parallels.
This is not legit. It's like you know.
Exactly. I think the innovation has
actually even ownership.
Yeah. Right. And even that ownership leads to even how stories about women are portrayed in our legacy media.
Yeah.
It's because like your whole chain just doesn't get it because they're not women. There is no innovation. Like we play it. If it's worked for the last 20 years, why are we changing it? And I'm like, because it's not working. It's actually not working in case you did not know, you know? It's like we wait until our newspaper fails. Then it's like, oh, so print media is, my goodness, you could predict from other markets. And then it's just, there's no innovation. Am I the only one? Maybe it's because I'm passionate about media, but like I'll watch shows and I'll just be like, what is happening? We are in 2025 and this is what, you're mad, you know? There's also no innovation in terms of like, you know, other markets even use things like AI to live fact check guests or whatever. Some of our legacy media cannot do that because even their machines cannot even allow you to do certain things, right?
Yeah.
So like even just on that level, before we get to content,
oh man, and
there's a problem. And I think it's just the structure, and I don't see it changing. I feel like
anytime soon.
No, I feel like they have to collapse.
The question is, who benefits? Kwebono. Yeah, so you can already see why the structures will continue to be that way intentionally and stay that way.
I do feel though, and this is me being the hopeful person for Africa, is that there are many there are many fragmented pieces that are coming together because you're not in legacy media, but look at what you're doing, and you're creating a space for 400 or 700 other.
For sure. And that's the exciting part is new media. But when I look at legacy media, it's just the structures.
It has to die before.
Yeah. And then we have to be intentional about equipping the next generation of creators, but also in terms of like the environment. Can they access funding or loans, or you know what I mean?
We have to tax them first before we have to tax.
This is how we do things. So that's why I said, how much time do you have? Because
I feel like this is a now whole thing because it just feels like you're always building outside the system.
And then hoping the system doesn't intentionally spot you and be like, how did this get out?
Kick her back in.
Give them double tax, you know? You're just always like,
it's like tax
progressing,
everything.
but not too much.
It's exhausting. And
I think I'm not talking about numbers.
No.
I'm just like, just a popper.
Just in case they're just like, where?
Popper. Just they're like, hey.
Correct.
I have a question though, because I want to understand, and this is maybe I'm poking holes, but what are you doing to shift that?
I think this is gonna sound so like the sentence. I was just like, wow, that sounds like Kanye. Yeah, but anyway, there's another way to put it. I think our mere existence, first and foremost, is disruptive. You know, and then the other thing is, you know, I haven't taught a class this year because the last masterclass completely drained me, like 100%. But I think ensuring that skill set is given freely. I think collaborations across African countries. So I'm really big on connecting like-minded or shared valued Africans in the creative economy. Like I really am big on that.
We experienced it firsthand.
Yeah.
We were like, hey, thanks for the hookup.
100%. Like I'm just like, hey, you talk to Phil. You talk to, because I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah. And she's also plugged us to other.
Yeah, she's incredible. Okay. Yeah, she's incredible.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of like we were so fragmented before, like because of colonization. Now we have to like actively build together. You know. And I think that's what's important to me. But also like the activism. Like when I'm this side and I have to be like, don't connect me to my business, please. This side, I'm just fighting on the streets. I think it's important because like we can only do so much in a corrupt environment. I can build all I want. I can be as brilliant, but I'm not going to reach my highest high if certain people remain in office. But
I like how you looked at the camera at death.
Yeah, exactly. So that agitation, I feel like there's a responsibility to push for a good environment.
And it's all right, because I think we live in this environment and there are things that are not right.
Yes.
There are things that are condoned or that we let go because there's some really bad laws that have been in place for a long time.
Yeah.
Our systems are broken. We must fix them, because if we don't fix them, then we won't thrive. And we will continue only a few people will continue to benefit. And I think that's, for me, the equity, the inequality that we must address. And it matters. And we must lend our voices.
Because that keeps us mediocre.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it keeps us the way we are.
I wish there could just be a corrupt, excellent person. Like, why is it everyone is mediocre and less?
Yeah, okay. I don't know if I agree with you on the corrupt side, but definitely on the because like sometimes even just, I don't know if it's because I'm Django and I'm just like, stop embarrassing us. Some of the speeches from our country in other countries that I hear, I'm just like, not only are you saying nonsense, but it's badly packaged. Like, at least package the nonsense in a way that is like, you know, there's esteem. But I think
that's shocking, actually. You know, even I listen to it sometimes and I'm just like, is it me? Is
such
it we?
A poorly structured speech. Like, I've not heard from this government.
Where did you write
one speech, not one that I'm
who
like,
wrote
And it's
that?
big stages, anger. Like you're seeing people there, and
Yeah,
you're just
and
like,
you're like,
who asked
this math
you?
is not mathing.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you see
whose interest do you have
why
at heart?
I say I'm embarrassed is
Yeah.
like the next time I go out there and I say I'm Kenyan, I'm going to be rounded up to you.
It is.
And no, I'm not.
Yeah.
And it's just,
No.
but also it's like, I keep telling people, even on the most basic things, for example, and I always use this example when I'm talking, I was talking at the Model African Union. I was like, please
Well
be
done.
selfish
Yeah.
when you're voting. Like, be fully selfish. Think about, and be fully privileged. Like, any issue is an okay issue, whether it's you don't have food or you want better roads or you want, you know what I mean? Like, this space is safe. Come with your privilege and everything. And for example, we laugh about it, but like, why do you have to rush for your charger when it's raining? Like, we're not the first country to experience rain, you know? And so
Adele.
that's like, why?
Or like, oh, I need to go home now.
That doesn't make sense.
Traffic, yeah.
Like, it actually, I'm like, you guys, we're normalizing something that is weird, you know? And where I stay, that would happen all the time. And so I went to the
wrong
substation
with
because I was like, tell me why
You really like
this
showing up
happens.
in government offices.
So tell me why this is happening. Because we're not the only country to experience rain. Rain did not start hitting us in 2023.
No.
We have lived with it. Since I've been a child in Kenya, there's been power rationing and maintenance. Okay, at a point when the thing you're maintaining needs to be maintained every other week, it is time to get a new one because things should not be like that.
Yeah.
And it was about trees. It's just like, our systems are so weird. Trees, nobody's cutting this. I'm like, give me a list. Who? And you guys, when you were putting your polls,
Did you see the
how
tree?
do you know?
Yeah.
So when you think about those things, and the reason I went there is because something like that stops me as a business running, because now I have to come to Nairobi. I've incurred costs.
Yeah.
You've wasted my time.
Yes.
There are businesses where I stay, Kinyozi's, whatever. That means for that day, that guy is not making money.
No.
There are hospitals, right? There are people sick at home. There's insecurity because then now there's no lights. So I always tell people these things affect your day today.
In more ways than,
you should agitate for better. Because now I'm competing against somebody in the States who has access to a world-class studio, 24/7.
Cheaper, faster.
And so they matter.
They do
All those
matter.
things matter. Yeah.
This has been awesome.
This was great. This
Thank
was
you,
fun, guys.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm
I've
so
really
sorry if you have
laughed
to
and
edit 2 hours.
There's no
no,
editing.
this is no, we're not editing as is.
Yes.
But this was fun. Thank
Thank
you so
you
much
for
for your
having
time.
me.
With your set.
Yeah, this
Gorgeous set.
good
Well
job.
done.
Good job.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
love
I
the
know I
yellow
told you I'm
energy.
stubborn.
She came
So
before. She
sorry.
was like, "Wait,
Yeah.
yellow up on me. I'll sit on the yellow seat."
Just
Okay,
like Peter
cheers.
Marangi.
Gosh, the
Thanks
end.
for having me.
The end.
Thank you.